to Europe now and take a look at the economic situation as it is unfolding, there is an effort to avoid the chaotic breakdown and have an orderly insolvency. Which way do you think we're headed?
Catastrophic breakdown. The way I try to look at this or explain it to people is simply that we all knew that socialism can't work. And the proof of it was when the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics fell apart. The socialists, especially the socialist economists who teach in the colleges, they spent many, many decades trying to make the case that socialism can be made to work. Well, by 1990, you could see what was going on in the Soviet Union was proof that it's an unworkable system. But the whole world was pretty much taught to believe in it. And what we have going on now is the collapse of socialism worldwide. What happened in the Soviet Union at the end of the 1980s and early 1990s now, I think, is beginning to sweep the whole world because socialism doesn't work. And there isn't any fix that these governments can put in place that's going to make socialism work. That's maybe the main thing to focus in on is no matter what they do, they can't make this irrational system work. It's not possible. So every kind of Band-Aid they put on the problem, if you can refer to something that costs $500 billion as a Band-Aid.
An expensive Band-Aid.
Yeah. Every one of these $500 billion Band-Aids that they put on this problem, that's all just wasted. You can't make socialism work. That's the bottom line.
But they're going to continue putting Band-Aids on it.
Yeah, right. They will until they just totally collapse the whole world economy, I think. I don't know how else this can go. When you're throwing out those Band-Aids, every few months, and it's not causing any sort of improvement, which it can't because it can't make socialism work. This has got to lead to some sort of astounding catastrophe. And actually, in my opinion, we are now in the beginning of a repeat of the Great Depression. We're in 1929 right now, and if they inflate the money supply enough, they can get that delayed for a while. They stand on street corners and hand out money to people. They will put a stop to the depression and create an inflationary boom for a little while, but they'll only be pushing it into the future. It's only kicking the can down the road. And that's all these Band-Aids are. All of these Band-Aids are just the process of kicking the can down the road.
I've heard it referred that we are in a depression, but the current time is more comparable to 1937, say. But you just said 1929, as if this is just the beginning. Yes,
I absolutely believe that. I've heard that argument, too, that this is 1937. No, I don't think so at all. I think that what we've seen so far isn't even close to as bad as it's going to get. Because what you find if you study the Great Depression is that the demand for money, or it's sometimes called velocity, referring to the speed at which money changes hands, that really is what wrecked the whole thing, because the government scared people so badly that they just hung on to their money and they wouldn't spend their money, and they would just put it into safe deposit boxes in the bank and not spend it. And so enormous amounts of money were just sucked out of the economy and stuck in safe deposit boxes and stuffed under people's mattresses and so forth. And businesses couldn't sell anything because people wouldn't buy anything. Now that was not a money supply problem. That was a money demand problem. The demand for money went up so high. People wanted cash so badly that they would just hoard it, stick it in their mattresses or in the bank deposit box and not spend it at all anyplace. And businesses couldn't stay alive under those circumstances. And I think we are in that now. I think these moves that have been happening the last few months, and especially last week or the week before with this twist idea, I think the government is just terrifying people. The government has so much power, and nobody knows what they're going to do with it. All they know is that these people don't know how to fix this problem, and they keep trying these Band-Aids over and over again. I think people are just terrified, and the mentality is exactly the same as 1929, where they just got so scared they quit buying anything. And I think we're in that now.
Well, there is an early warning report from Richard Maybury.
Yes, right.
Let me remind you that Richard Maybury is the editor of U.S. and World Early Warning Report. You can find out information about that. Probably the easiest way is to visit richardmaybury.com. Maybury is spelled Maybury, richardmaybury.com. You can also find out more about the books. In addition to the newsletter, find out about the books. This conversation is continued in part in the next edition of U.S. and World Early Warning Report. And one of the reasons I also wanted to talk with you today, Richard, is that I know you're coming to Phoenix later this week. Over the weekend, you're going to be a featured speaker at a conference presented by Casey Research and Sprott Inc., entitled When Money Dies, and I think it's a multi-day conference going on. Folks can find out more, I'm sure, by Googling, searching When Money Dies, Casey Research, Richard Maybury. Put it all together, you can find out the details. But more important, find out the details on U.S. and World Early Warning Report by going to richardmaybury.com. This is a dire time that we're in, is it not?
Yes, it is. And in my last newsletter, in the September issue, that's one of the points I made, is people have got to get used to it. Look at history. These things happen. Really, really bad things happen. And you've got to get it through your head that we're in one of those periods where really, really bad things are happening. The land of milk and honey isn't anymore, at least for a while. And you have to be ready for some really hard times, I think.
Are we getting right up to it on a timeline? I mean, is this something that you think is going to play out over the next 5 years or over the next 5 months?
Won't be 5 months for sure. 5 years is more realistic, and if it goes 10 or 20 years, it wouldn't surprise me.
But I mean, the breakdown could start within 5 months.
I think it's already started. I think when they announced this twist thing, and the whole world realized that Washington has no idea what it's doing, that was the lid on the pot. That sealed it. I think the dominant force in the world now is fear. Period. Fear, and for good reason. That's the whole point. These governments have so much power. They're in the position of being gods, and yet they don't know what they're doing. And this can't lead to anything good.
So we've got a dumb God leading us.
Yeah, that's right.
U.S. and World Early Warning Report. Richard Maybury. Richard, I could continue on talking with you for hours, and it would be a pleasure, but we have run out of time. I thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks, Sinclair. As always, I enjoyed it very much.